My name is Riley, and I was 7 years old when my brother Tommy was born. He came into this world too early. I remember pressing my nose against the glass, watching him lie there in that clear box with tubes and wires everywhere. That was the beginning of when everything changed. Mom switched to part-time work to spend more time with Tommy. She'd sit for hours in the rocking chair beside his incubator, just watching him breathe. Dad would rush to the hospital straight from work, not even stopping to say hello to me at home. When Tommy finally came home, things didn't get better, they got worse. Mom would jump at his smallest whimper, while I learned to take care of myself. I started making my own sandwiches for lunch because Mom was too busy feeding Tommy. I learned to tie my shoes and do my hair because no one had time to help me anymore. The first time I really understood how different things were was during my 8th birthday. Mom and Dad forgot about it completely. I sat at the kitchen table that morning, waiting for someone to say something, to bring out a cake, or even just wish me happy birthday. Instead, Mom was busy trying to get Tommy to eat his breakfast, and Dad was reading the newspaper. It wasn't until my teacher, Mrs. Roberts, called home that evening to wish me happy birthday that Mom remembered. She quickly threw together a small cake and gave me one of Tommy's old stuffed animals as a present, still with his name written on the tag. I learned to find comfort elsewhere, mainly at my Aunt Sarah's house. She was Dad's younger sister, and unlike my parents, she actually saw me. Her husband, Uncle Mark, and their daughter Emma became my real family in many ways. They lived just across town, and I started spending more and more time there. She'd take me shopping with Emma, buying us matching outfits and treating us exactly the same. One time, Mom saw me wearing a new dress Aunt Sarah had bought me. Her face twisted into something between anger and shame. "Sarah, you're spoiling her," she complained on the phone that evening. "We can't afford to keep up with your gifts." The truth was, they could afford plenty for Tommy. He got new toys almost every week, while I wore the same clothes until they literally fell apart. I remember one particular incident when I was 11 that still makes my blood boil when I think about it. My teacher pulled Mom aside after school one day. "Mrs. Anderson, I'm concerned about Riley," Ms. Thompson said quietly. "She's been wearing the same clothes for 2 months now. They're getting quite worn." Mom's face turned red. "Oh, those are just her favorite clothes," she lied smoothly. "She insists on wearing them. You know how children are." But when we got home, Mom's embarrassment turned to rage. She grabbed my arm so hard it left marks. "How dare you shame us like that?" she screamed, striking me across the face. "Do you want everyone to think we're bad parents?" I wanted to scream back that they were bad parents, at least to me. But I just stood there, holding my stinging cheek, watching as Tommy played with his brand new remote control car in the next room. By the time Tommy turned 8, I'd become more of a live-in maid than a daughter. Every morning started the same way: wake up early, make breakfast for everyone, pack Tommy's lunch, and clean up after them all. The dishes were always waiting for me when I got home from school, along with a list of other chores Mom had thought up during the day. One evening, after spending hours cooking dinner, doing laundry, and helping Tommy with his homework, I finally broke down. My hands were raw from scrubbing pots, and my back ached from standing all day. "Mom, I'm exhausted," I said, my voice cracking. "Can't someone else help with the housework?" Dad looked up from his phone just long enough to say, "You're 13 now, Riley. You're old enough to help around the house. That's what responsible adults do." "But Tommy doesn't have to do anything," I protested. "Tommy's still young," Mom snapped. "He needs time to be a child." I wanted to scream that I was still a child too, but what was the point? Instead, I found myself spending more and more time at Aunt Sarah's house. Their home became my sanctuary, a place where I could just be a kid. Emma was 5 years younger than me, but she became like the little sister I wished Tommy had been. We'd spend hours creating elaborate structures, something I never got to do at home because Tommy would always destroy anything I built. Sometimes I'd stay overnight, sleeping in their spare room that gradually accumulated some of my things: a toothbrush, some pajamas, a few books. My parents never called to check where I was. I don't think they even noticed I was gone most of the time. Uncle Mark became the father figure I desperately needed. He'd often find me doing homework at their kitchen table late into the evening. "You know, Riley," he said one night, helping me with my algebra, "your parents might not see it, but you've got a bright future ahead of you. You need to focus on your studies though. Get good grades, win those scholarships, because I hate to say it, but I don't think your parents are planning to help with college." His words hit hard, but they also gave me purpose. I threw myself into my studies with renewed determination. I joined the school's debate club, staying late after school 3 days a week to practice. I entered every academic competition I could find: science fairs, essay contests, math Olympics. I won first place in the regional debate championship, beating students from 15 other schools. The local newspaper even did a small write-up about it. When I showed the article to my parents at dinner, Mom glanced at it briefly and said, "That's nice, dear. Oh, Tommy, tell Riley about how you scored a goal in soccer practice today." But their indifference only made me work harder. I started taking advanced placement classes, staying up late to complete extra credit assignments. My teachers noticed, even if my parents didn't. They started suggesting summer academic programs and college prep courses. When I turned 16, I got my first real job at the Sunshine Cafe, working as a waitress after school. For the first time in my life, I had my own money, earned by my own efforts. The first paycheck felt like freedom in my hands. I remember staring at the numbers on the paper, already planning what I could buy, maybe some new clothes that actually fit, or school supplies I wouldn't have to beg for. But my brief moment of independence didn't last long. Mom cornered me in the kitchen one evening, Dad standing behind her with his arms crossed. "So," she said, her voice sharp, "when were you planning to tell us about your job? You're making money while living under our roof, eating our food, using our utilities." Dad nodded. "We've decided that it's only fair you contribute to the household expenses. Half of your paycheck should cover it." Still, even with half my earnings gone, I managed to save enough to buy myself a smartphone. Nothing super fancy, but it was new, and it was mine, the first real piece of technology I'd ever owned. I'd been using an ancient flip phone that could barely send texts, while Tommy had the latest iPhone. I was so proud of that phone. I downloaded educational apps, used it to take notes in class, even joined some study groups online. For a week, everything was perfect. Then Tommy spotted me using it. "Hey, that's a nice phone," he said, walking into my room without knocking. "Way better than that piece of junk you had before. Give it to me." I clutched the phone tighter. "No way. I bought this with my own money." His face twisted into that familiar spoiled expression. "Come on, my phone is getting old. I need a new one." When I refused again, he stormed out. I could hear him thundering down the stairs, and I knew exactly where he was going. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, Mom and Dad appeared in my doorway. "Riley," Dad said in his reasonable voice that was anything but reasonable, "your brother tells us you're being selfish." "I bought this phone myself," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "With the money I earned after giving you half of my paycheck." They left eventually, but not before calling me ungrateful, selfish, and a terrible sister. I went to bed that night with my phone clutched tight to my chest. 3 days later, I found it in pieces on my bedroom floor. The screen was shattered, the case cracked open like someone had deliberately stomped on it. When I confronted Tommy, he just smirked. "Maybe you should take better care of your things," he said with a shrug. "Stuff breaks sometimes." The day my college acceptance letters arrived should have been one of the happiest days of my life. All those late nights studying, the extra classes, the academic competitions, they had finally paid off. 3 colleges had accepted me: Riverside University, Wellington College, and our local state university. I sat on my bed, spreading the letters out in front of me. Riverside and Wellington were my dream schools, but they both required substantial tuition payments. State University wasn't as prestigious, but they'd offered me a full scholarship. The choice was obvious. I couldn't afford to pay for college on my own, and I knew better than to expect help from my parents. There was just one catch. The acceptance letter from State University included a note about housing. As you reside within city limits, you do not qualify for student housing. Our dormitories are reserved for out-of-state and long-distance students only. I decided to share the news with my parents over dinner that night. Tommy was there too, shoveling pasta into his mouth while playing some game on his phone, the latest model, of course. I got accepted to college, I announced, trying to keep the pride in my voice. 3 of them, actually. I'm going to attend State University, they're offering me a full scholarship. To my surprise, both my parents looked up. Mom even smiled. Well, that's wonderful, Riley, Dad said, actually sounding pleased for once. You see what hard work can accomplish? I felt a warm glow in my chest. Maybe things were finally changing. Maybe they were finally seeing me. Then Mom cleared her throat. Now that you're going to be an adult student, we need to discuss your living arrangements. We've decided you should pay rent. When they named the amount, I literally choked on my pasta. Tommy had to pound me on the back, looking far too amused by my distress. That's almost $1,000. I gasped when I could breathe again. That's impossible. I can't afford that. Mom shrugged, taking a delicate bite of her dinner. We pay rent for this house every month, Riley. Have been for years. You're an adult now, it's time you learned about real-world responsibilities. But I'll be a full-time student, I protested. Even if I worked 2 part-time jobs, I couldn't make that much. My parents exchanged a look I'd seen many times before, the one that meant trouble for me. Well, Dad said slowly, if you can't contribute to the household expenses, perhaps it's time you found your own place to live. Time to stand on your own 2 feet. But what about Tommy? I couldn't help asking. Will he have to pay rent when he turns 18? That's different, Dad snapped. Your brother has special needs. Special needs? Tommy was perfectly healthy now, hadn't had any health issues since he was a toddler. But I knew arguing was pointless. I spent the next 2 days packing my life into boxes and bags. It wasn't much, years of being the less favored child meant I didn't have many possessions. Each item I packed felt like a reminder of all the things I'd never had, all the love I'd never received. As I carried my last box out the front door, I heard Tommy's voice behind me. Finally, he crowed. I'm going to turn your room into the ultimate gaming setup. Maybe I'll put the big TV where your bed was, and the gaming chairs can go by the window. With nowhere else to go, I found myself standing on Aunt Sarah's doorstep that night, trying to hold back tears as I rang the doorbell. Uncle Mark opened the door, took one look at my face and the bags at my feet, and immediately called for Aunt Sarah. They did what? Aunt Sarah's voice rose in fury as I explained what had happened. They kicked you out? Their own daughter? Because I couldn't pay their rent, I said, my voice breaking. They said since I'm 18 now. I don't care if you're 18 or 80, Uncle Mark interrupted, his face red with anger. You're staying with us. No arguments. That night, as I lay in their guest room, my room now, I finally let myself cry. Not just from sadness or fear, but from relief. For the first time in my life, I felt truly at home. I spent that summer working full-time at the Sunshine Cafe, saving every penny I could for college expenses. Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark refused to let me pay rent or buy groceries, insisting I focus on preparing for school. When fall came, I started my classes at State University. It was hard work, balancing studies with my part-time job at the cafe, but I was determined to succeed. Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark treated me exactly like they treated Emma, helping me with assignments, celebrating my achievements, even insisting I join them on their family vacation to the beach. It was strange, being treated as an equal member of the family. Every time they included me in family photos, every time they introduced me as our Riley to their friends, every time they hung my achievements on the wall next to Emma's, it healed a little piece of my heart. My parents and Tommy? they became strangers. Whenever we passed each other on the street, they would look right through me, as if I were invisible. It hurt at first, but gradually, I realized it hurt less than when they had been in my life. But Tommy couldn't leave well enough alone. One afternoon, during my shift at the cafe, he walked in with a group of his friends. I knew immediately from his smirk that this wasn't a coincidence. Well, he drawled loudly as I approached their table. "Look who it is, guys, my sister the waitress. Still serving coffee after college? Really living the dream, huh?" His friend snickered. I kept my face neutral, pulled out my order pad. "Welcome to Sunshine Cafe. What can I get for you?" "Oh, I don't know." Tommy made a show of studying the menu. "What would you recommend?" "I mean, you're the expert on cheap food, right?" More laughter from his friends. Tommy spent the next 20 minutes ordering and then sending back everything I brought, complaining that the coffee was too hot, then too cold, that his sandwich had too much mayo, then not enough. "Maybe if you'd studied something useful instead of just running away from home," he said loudly as I cleared their table, "you wouldn't be stuck in this dead-end job." I wanted to tell him that I wasn't stuck anywhere, that I was working here by choice while I pursued my real career goals. But I just kept clearing the table, remembering what Aunt Sarah always said: some people are so small inside that they can only feel big by making others feel small. After graduating college, I landed an entry-level position at Anderson and Mills Consulting. The salary wasn't amazing, but it was steady, and more importantly, it was a foot in the door. I threw myself into the work with the same determination that had gotten me through school. After my second paycheck, I found a small one-bedroom apartment across town. When I told Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark I was moving out, they both got teary-eyed. "Are you sure you don't want to stay longer?" Aunt Sarah asked, helping me pack. "You know you're always welcome here." I hugged her tight. "I know, but it's time for me to stand on my own feet. Besides, I'll visit so often you'll get sick of me." And I kept that promise. Every Sunday dinner, every holiday, random weeknight visits, I made sure they knew they were still my family. Emma would come crash at my apartment for sister sleepovers when she needed a break from college life, and I'd help her with her assignments just like Uncle Mark had once helped me. Years passed, and I worked my way up the corporate ladder. Late nights, weekend projects, additional certifications, I did whatever it took. My dedication paid off. By the time I was 28, I'd been promoted to Senior Operations Director, managing a team of 30 people and earning more money than I'd ever dreamed possible. "I'm thinking of buying a house," I announced one Sunday over dinner at Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark's. "Something with a nice yard, maybe even a pool." "That's wonderful," Aunt Sarah beamed. "Oh, that reminds me. I ran into your mother at the grocery store last week. I tried to tell her how well you're doing. I thought maybe after all these years." She shook her head. She cut me off before I could finish. Said she doesn't have a daughter and doesn't care what you're doing. The words hung in the air like poison. Uncle Mark reached over and squeezed my hand, but I wasn't sad. In fact, for the first time in years, I felt absolutely clear about what I needed to do. The next day, I called my friend Jennifer, who worked as a realtor. "Hey Jen, I need a favor. Can you find out who owns the house at 1247 Maple Street?" Jennifer called back with the owner's contact information. Mr. Peterson had owned the property for over 20 years, the entire time my family had been renting it. My hand shook slightly as I dialed his number. "Mr. Peterson? My name is Riley Anderson. I'm interested in buying your property on Maple Street. I'm prepared to offer 20% above market value. Cash deal, quick closing." 2 weeks later, I sat in a lawyer's office, signing the final paperwork. As I wrote my name on the last page, I couldn't help but smile. The house where I'd experienced so much pain was now mine. My parents and Tommy were still living there, completely unaware that their landlord had changed. I called Jennifer again the next day. "One more favor," I said. "Could you contact my parents as their real estate agent?" Tell them the house has a new owner who wants to inspect the property and discuss their lease. Just don't mention my name. Oh, I am going to enjoy this, Jennifer laughed. When do you want to do it? We set the date for the following Tuesday. I spent the morning reviewing the property documents, making sure everything was in perfect order. As I drove to my old house, my heart was pounding, but not from fear, from anticipation. The house looked exactly the same as when I'd left it 6 years ago. I rang the doorbell. Mom opened the door, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. Her face went from confusion to shock to anger in the span of seconds. Riley, what are you doing here? She demanded. Dad appeared behind her, and I could hear Tommy's heavy footsteps coming down the stairs. Get out, Dad snapped. We're waiting for someone important. The new owner of the house is coming to inspect the property. I smiled, reached into my briefcase, and pulled out the deed. Oh, he's already here. I bought the house 2 weeks ago. Would you like to see the documentation? The silence that followed was deafening. Tommy had reached the bottom of the stairs now, his mouth hanging open. That's impossible, Dad stammered. Actually, it's quite possible when you're a senior operations director at one of the city's top consulting firms, I replied, stepping past them into the house, my house. Mr. Peterson was quite happy with my offer. The transformation in their faces was almost comical. Mom's scowl melted into a sickly sweet smile. Riley, sweetheart, she cooed, why don't you come sit down? I'll make some tea. We can catch up. Like a proper family, Dad added quickly. Family? I couldn't help but laugh. The same family that threw me out on the street when I couldn't pay their astronomical rent? The same family that told everyone they didn't have a daughter? Now, Riley, Mom started, we were just trying to teach you responsibility. Oh, I learned responsibility, I cut her off. I learned it very well. In fact, let's discuss your new rent terms. I named the new monthly amount, double what they'd been paying. The color drained from their faces. That's impossible, Tommy exploded. We can't afford that. Where are we supposed to get that kind of money? I shrugged, echoing their words from years ago. Not my problem. You have until the 1st of next month to either pay the new rate or move out. They followed me to the door, their tones switching rapidly between pleading and threatening. Mom tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. Riley, please, she begged. We're your family. No, I said firmly. You stopped being my family the day you chose your comfort over your daughter's future. You have 30 days to decide what you're going to do. 1 month later, I stood across the street, watching as my parents and Tommy loaded the last of their belongings into a moving truck. They'd tried calling me multiple times over the past weeks, alternating between begging for more time and threatening legal action. I hadn't answered a single call. Mom noticed me first. She nudged Dad, who looked up from the box he was carrying. The hatred in their eyes was palpable. Tommy slammed the truck's rear door with unnecessary force, glaring in my direction. None of them said a word to me, they just got into their vehicles and drove away, leaving behind the house they'd rented for over 2 decades. I waited until they were gone before walking up to my property. My property. The word still felt strange in my mind. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house felt bigger now, emptier, but still heavy with memories. Over the next 3 months, I transformed the house completely. The walls that had witnessed my tears came down, creating an open-concept living space. The kitchen where I'd spent countless hours cooking for an ungrateful family was gutted and modernized. Tommy's precious game room, my old bedroom, became a home office with large windows and built-in bookshelves. Every change felt like erasing another painful memory. The contractor stripped the old wallpaper, and with it went the marks where I'd once measured my height alone because no one else cared to do it. The creaky floorboard that had always betrayed my late-night study sessions disappeared under new hardwood. The stained carpet that had held years of spills I'd been forced to clean up was replaced with sleek tiles. It looks amazing, Aunt Sarah said when I gave her, Uncle Mark, and Emma the grand tour. It doesn't even look like the same house anymore. That was the point, I replied, leading them onto the new back deck, my favorite addition to the house. We sat there drinking lemonade, my real family, watching the sunset over the backyard where a swing set once stood. Now there was a garden starting to bloom, new life springing from old soil. I never saw my parents or Tommy again after that day they moved out. Sometimes I heard snippets about them through the neighborhood grapevine. They'd moved to a small apartment across town. Tommy had finally moved out on his own when the reality of apartment living didn't suit him. But their lives weren't my concern anymore. My life was here, in this renovated house that no longer held ghosts, with Sunday dinners at Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark's, movie nights with Emma, and holiday celebrations filled with genuine love and laughter. I had finally found what I'd been looking for all along, not revenge, not success, but the simple truth that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about love, support, and choosing to be there for each other, no matter what.
Hello, my name is Diana, and I'm a 40-year-old woman. The past 5 years have been quite eventful, and I recently experienced what karmic justice truly feels like. After seeing many stories shared here, I decided it was time to share mine. My story begins with my ex-husband, Chase. We met in college and dated for about 2 years. Our plan was to move in together after graduation and wait a few more years before getting married. However, I became pregnant almost immediately after we moved in together. Neither of us wanted to terminate the pregnancy, so we adjusted our life plans and welcomed our beautiful baby girl, Serena. Serena was the light of my life. She was incredibly smart, charming, and full of energy. She loved socializing and always had an abundance of energy, which she often expended by helping me around the house. While Serena was a joy to be around, Chase and I began to have issues. Since her birth, Chase rarely stayed home to help with Serena. He barely had a relationship with her, and we frequently fought about it. His primary concern was always money and how it was being spent. We both had well-paying jobs and were financially stable, always up to date on our bills with some money left over each month. I put this extra money into a savings account for Serena's future, like her college fund. Chase was upset that he couldn't spend this money and often complained, despite having his own monthly allowance. Things improved slightly when Chase got a promotion. I let him keep his extra money to avoid arguments, and with this financial boost, he started paying more attention to Serena. It angered me that money was the motivator, but it was better than him ignoring her completely. For the next 10 years, life seemed to improve. Chase and I got along better, and Serena blossomed into a beautiful young girl. I was nervous about her teenage years, but something much worse happened. My once lively and energetic daughter became lethargic, unable to stay awake for more than 3 to 4 hours at a time. Her grades, which were always A's, started slipping to C's. I tried talking to her, but she insisted everything was fine. The breaking point came when her teachers called, concerned that Serena was sleeping in class and struggling to stay awake. I sat her down, and she admitted that she felt fuzzy in her head and couldn't stay awake without experiencing severe headaches. Deeply worried, I shared my concerns with Chase that night. "Chase, I think something is really wrong with Serena," I said. "What do you mean?" he replied. "She's getting paler and weaker by the day. She doesn't have a temperature, but even the smallest tasks exhaust her. I asked her to tidy up her room, and she fell asleep immediately after, waking only for dinner. She's also sleeping in class and constantly late. Maybe she's just tired from the day," Chase suggested. "No, it's more than that. She's stuck in a constant state of lethargy. I've spoken to her, and she says she feels drowsy all the time and doesn't know how to cope." "She's probably just going through puberty," he shrugged. "I don't think this is puberty. We need to take her to a doctor," I insisted. "That's unnecessary. It'll cost a lot of money just for the doctor to tell us it's normal teenage stuff. What's more important, money or our daughter? We have health insurance, and I'll cover whatever else is needed. Fine, but the money's coming out of your pocket, he conceded. I couldn't believe Chase was so concerned about the cost when our daughter's health was at stake. Trusting my instincts, I took Serena to the doctor the next morning despite her protests. She was honest with the doctor about her symptoms. The doctor ordered blood work and scheduled an MRI to get to the root of the problem. Over the next few weeks, Serena and I were in and out of the hospital constantly, learning little about her condition. With each visit, the tests became more intense, and the atmosphere grew more tense and panicked. My stomach churned with anxiety, sensing that something was gravely wrong, but I knew I had to stay strong for Serena. Chase was no help during this time. He only berated me for wasting time and money. I learned to tune out his rants. Finally, after another round of blood work and scans, the doctor informed us that he would call me in the evening with the results. I spent the day pacing, waiting anxiously for the call. When it finally came, nothing could have prepared me for the shock. The doctor revealed that Serena had an early stage of brain cancer, and we were fortunate to have detected it early. It felt like ice water had been poured over me. I listened to the doctor in a daze and thanked him for his care. Chase knew I had received the call and decided to ask me about it, tauntingly. What happened? What did the doctor say? Did you waste a bunch of money like I told you? Serena has a tumor in her brain, and it's cancerous, I replied. What? My poor baby. She's been suffering for so long. How will I even break this news to her? Wait, how far along is the cancer? Thankfully, it's still very treatable. She'll need surgery and chemotherapy. Thank God I took her issues seriously, right? So we're going through with the treatments for her then. What kind of question is that? Of course we are. I'm not going to let my daughter die. That's one more expense we have to shoulder now. I always told her not to be on her phone all the time. Are you serious right now? Are you really valuing money over our daughter? Look, I get that you're being overly emotional about this, but at some point you're going to have to think logically about how this will affect us. What are you talking about? How am I not supposed to be emotional? This is our child. We've watched her grow up and been with her through every up and down. How can you be so emotionless? It's not that deep. Yes, I feel sad too. I don't think Serena deserves to go through this, but really, we're already struggling as a family, and the costs of her treatments will be very hard for us to handle. Great, so what do you propose we do? Not give our daughter the life-saving treatment she needs. Don't try to make me into a bad person here. Oh, believe me, you're doing that all on your own. You want to know how we could work around the cost of her treatments. For starters, you can stop eating out for lunch every day. Stop going on long drives in that gas-guzzling car of yours. Stop going out to drink with your work buddies every other day. Why are you behaving as if our daughter is the issue here rather than you? You're clearly deranged. Even if I stopped all of that, it would never cost as much as Serena's treatments, and you know it. Money saved is better than money spent, no matter how small the amount. That's a stupid thing to say. You know what? We were already struggling to begin with, and now you're asking me to give up the only things that were keeping me sane. I don't want to do this anymore. What are you talking about? It's way too expensive to look after Serena, and I don't want to be destitute. I'm just going to leave. I'll start the filing process for divorce tomorrow, and you'll get the papers whenever you do. You can't just leave me like that. Since you know just how to save money, I'm sure you'll figure it out all on your own. I'm going to go now. Bye. Chase took the packed suitcase from his wardrobe and left the house. I could barely process what I had been told about Serena, let alone my husband leaving me because he felt he deserved to spend all his money on himself. He didn't hesitate to put himself first, showing no empathy for Serena or concern for how I was coping. I cried myself to sleep that night, and when I woke up the next day, I hoped that everything had been a terrible dream. But it wasn't. Despite Chase's behavior, I thought it would be better for Serena to have him around, especially since I had no idea how to break the news of our impending divorce to her. So I called Chase, hoping to convince him to stay. He didn't pick up the first 3 times, But on the fourth try, he answered. "Oh, thank God you picked up," I exclaimed. "What do you want?" he replied coldly. "Look, I'm sorry if I did or said anything wrong. I get that we were both dealing with a lot. Learning that your daughter has cancer is a big deal, and everyone processes things differently." "What are you saying?" he asked. "What I'm trying to say is that I understand you must have been overwhelmed. I probably didn't make it easier by insinuating that you were selfish. Please don't leave Serena and me. Serena wants to see you and is scared you left because of her." First of all, I did leave because of her. Well, to be more precise, because of her upcoming expenses. The cancer news was just the final nail in the coffin. I didn't want to be more destitute than we already were. I was tired of constantly calculating how much I could spend. "Wow, so you just wanted to leave because you were selfish," I said, incredulous. "You can call me whatever you want, but I'm just doing what's best for myself. Do you really feel nothing for your daughter? How can you leave at the most crucial moment of her life without batting an eye? I get it. What Serena's going through is tragic, but I can't be there to support all of us anymore. I can't take any more financial strain, and that's it. What if Serena doesn't make it? Or what if the treatments continue for years? Who's going to finance all of that? You didn't even stop to think of things that way. How dare you believe that Serena won't make it? Even if she didn't, at least the guilt of not having tried enough wouldn't exist. Isn't that something you want?" "No thanks. I don't want to give up my comfort just to be there for no results." "I hope you know that you're a monster. I hope nothing but the absolute worst for you." "Great. The divorce papers shall reach you in a day or two. Please don't contact me again. Bye." I was appalled. I didn't know what to think. I felt completely numb. How could someone be so careless as to leave their daughter when she had just been diagnosed with cancer? I wanted to cry, not only because my relationship with Chase was over for such a selfish reason, but also because I didn't know how to tell Serena why her father left. I realized that I needed to steel myself and be strong for her. She was already going through so much. The last thing she needed was to see her mother break down. Over the course of the next year, Chase and I got legally divorced. I found out through social media that he married another woman immediately after our divorce was finalized. That sent me down an entirely new spiral, making me feel even more worthless than before. But again, I tamped down my emotions because I needed to stay strong for my little girl. I couldn't keep the reason for Chase's absence from Serena for long. I made excuses for the first few months, which was somewhat easier since she was almost always hospitalized. But eventually, I realized I was only hurting her by not telling her the truth. When I finally told her, she was heartbroken but eventually got through it. I stayed by her side throughout, letting her cry for as long as she needed. Watching her process her emotions helped me cope with mine. Serena underwent extensive surgery and chemotherapy. She lost all her hair and a significant amount of weight, but she remained happy, and that was all that mattered. The next 2 years were spent with frequent hospital visits for checkups and routine scans. Finally, 3 years after being diagnosed, my baby girl was declared cancer-free. It was a truly momentous occasion for us, so we hosted a big party to celebrate with everyone who had supported us, including my parents, Serena's teachers and classmates, our neighbors, and even Chase's parents. Chase's parents had been incredibly supportive, despite the circumstances. When they learned about our divorce, they were disgusted by their son's behavior and disowned him. They made it a point to come over and help in any way they could. I am truly grateful for them. After my baby girl turned 18, she decided to take a gap year to spend quality time with me, considering the last few years had been spent stressing over her cancer. We were finally doing well in every aspect of life, and I was genuinely beginning to feel good. But of course, something had to happen. One day, I received a call from an unknown number. For some reason, I picked it up. "Hello. Hi, Diana. It's Chase here. How did you get my number?" "Well, I had to look around for it, but I found it eventually." "Did you stalk me?" "No, look, I just wanted to check in on you and Serena." "Why all of a sudden?" I just miss both of you. Right. And it took you 5 years to reach out to us? I know I was horrible for what I did. I don't think horrible is a strong enough word to describe abandoning us right after my daughter got diagnosed with cancer, all because you were a selfish jerk. I see you're still holding onto that grudge. I'm sorry for it all, by the way. I'm a changed man now. I highly doubt that. Could you please just tell me how Serena's doing, at least? Why should I? You didn't care before, so I don't see why I should tell you anything. Look, you either tell me, or I'll pull some strings and find out myself. Serena's doing fine, so am I. How were you able to finance everything for her? Why is that any of your concern? Look, I feel guilty enough for what I did. At least let me feel better knowing how you managed to get through it all. My parents helped, and so did yours. Our neighbors and Serena's school also helped in every way they could. Now that I think about it, maybe it was a good thing that you left. Yikes. But you're right, I've been nothing but miserable since I left. I married this woman who was filthy rich, quit my job, and became a stay-at-home husband. How was that miserable for you? Wasn't that everything you ever wanted? Sure. But she never failed to rub her wealth in my face. One day, I snapped at her, and she decided to leave me. Now I'm going to be homeless in a week and have nowhere to turn. So, you're the reason for your own misery. That's not surprising. Why are you telling me all this anyway? I just wanted to ask if you could send me some money just for the next few months until I can get back on my feet. I would ask my parents, but they refused to speak to me. Ha, you cannot be serious, Chase. You have some nerve to stalk me, find my number, threaten me with more stalking to find out about how we're doing, and then ask me for money after you abandoned your family when they were at their lowest. You don't have to keep throwing my mistakes in my face. I won't be able to help you in any way. Why? I promise I'll be better. I'll make up for it in any way that I can. Oh, I would love to help you, but it's too expensive to look after you. And I've gotten too used to my comforts. I can't imagine giving that up. You're right. Good luck with your future. Do me a favor and lose my number because I never want to hear from you again. If you contact me again, I will file a restraining order against you. Stay out of mine and Serena's lives for good, just as you intended when you left. Bye. Nothing felt better than throwing Chase's words back at him. Did I feel bad for his situation? Absolutely not. He left Serena and me when we were at our lowest, all because of his selfish needs. I saw no reason to help him and was shocked at his audacity to come crawling back. I blocked his number because I wanted nothing to do with him. I later found out through his parents that he had tried to contact them for help, but they wanted nothing to do with him either. They were appalled at his audacity and had a strong word with him, telling him he was a disappointment to them. He had burned all bridges just to live the comfortable life he wanted. I didn't keep up with what happened to Chase after that. His ex-wife reached out to me, asking if he had contacted me. I told her he did, and she shared that she couldn't understand how I had put up with him before because he was beyond a handful. We shared a few messages about how Chase was a jerk and then moved on. I didn't hide the fact that Chase had contacted me from Serena. She was relieved that I did not fall for whatever his plan was and stood my ground. I asked her if she wanted to get in contact with him, as he was still her father and she was entitled to feel however she wanted about him. Serena assured me she wanted nothing to do with Chase, especially after the heartbreak she suffered in the middle of her treatments when she found out he was never coming back. Things resumed back to normal in our lives after that. Somehow, knowing that Chase was living miserably added a spring to my step. It felt like a resolution to our tragic past. Serena felt the same way, and we began talking more openly about him. We've both decided it's time to go to therapy and deal with our issues. I'm excited to see where life takes us from here. I'm grateful for the second chance I've been given with my daughter. As long as I get to be with her until the end of my time, nothing else matters. Thank you so much for listening.
I've been working as a temp for 3 years and was supposed to leave the company without a contract renewal. On my first day of unemployment, I found myself being begged by the beautiful company CEO right in front of her house. My name is Ethan Bridge, and I'm 38 years old. I work as a temp at a trading company with about 20 employees. Originally, I was a full-time employee, but 5 years ago, I resigned to take care of my mother. Growing up in a single-parent household, I consider myself fortunate to have spent her final years together. After saying goodbye to my mother, I found myself alone at 35, trying to re-enter the workforce. Without notable skills and with a several-year gap, I ended up as a temp at my current company. The company was built from scratch by the former CEO, Nelson, who passed away suddenly a year before I joined. His eldest daughter, Natalie Nelson, took over, though she was still in her 20s at the time. Under her leadership, the company's performance steadily improved. With business expansion came the need for more staff, leading to the hiring of temps like me. Natalie is known in the industry for her beautiful appearance and sharp business acumen. However, internal evaluations of her are quite harsh. The office is on the same floor for all positions, so all employees work with a constant sense of tension. As a temp with no skills, I naturally couldn't be trusted with any responsible tasks. My days were spent handling menial tasks. On my first day of unemployment, I was handed a few mugs and headed to the washing area. I'm about to reach the end of my 3-year contract, and the only skills I've acquired are efficient cleaning and knowing the coffee preferences of all employees, including Natalie. The only praise I received was for cleaning a coffee stain off a mug that had been used by the employees for years. "Did you do this?" Natalie had once asked, having never spoken to me before. "Yes, I used a dish bleach for the cup stains," I answered nervously. She looked straight into my eyes. "Excuse me, but I'll get back to work," I said, feeling nervous but not ashamed, as she was truly admirable. 3 years of menial tasks flew by quickly, and the day my contract ended arrived. There was no renewal or department change, and the simple procedures continued under the assumption that I was to leave. My supervisors, though not bad people, didn't seem to care much about my departure. I kept telling myself it was better to move on without any lingering attachments. At the very last moment, I was called by Natalie. Though it was just a simple farewell, I was happy she even bothered to speak to me. "Natalie, I think you shouldn't overdo it," I added. To my surprise, she looked shocked. "Oh, did I seem that way?" she asked. Though she never showed any signs of weakness or fatigue, I could tell from her mug stains. "I mean the stains on your mug were the toughest to clean," I said. She looked at me, even more surprised. Afraid of being scolded, I quickly said, "Oh, sorry, please never mind that. Thank you very much. Excuse me," and was about to leave the room. "Wait a minute," she suddenly stopped me, grabbed my arm, and clearly said, "Can I ask you for a department transfer?" A few days after quitting the temp agency, I found myself riding the bus, dressed almost like I was lounging at home. I got off at a bus stop a bit away from the business district and looked around the square outside. "Ethan." I turned towards the voice that echoed clearly in the quiet square and saw Natalie waving at me in front of a car. That day was a company holiday. Natalie, not in her usual suit but in casual clothes, showed a sense of everyday life that I had never felt from her before. "I'm really sorry for making such an unexpected request. I'm really grateful you accepted," Natalie said as she drove through a quiet residential neighborhood and parked the car in front of a particular house. She naturally was about to get off and head inside when I called out to her again to make sure. "Sorry, but are you sure I'm the right person for this?" She calmed down and repeated what she had said before. "Definitely. You'll live here, won't you?" "With my sister, just until I return from the business trip." Surprisingly, my new job was at Natalie's house. She would be away in a state for a month and a half starting next week, leaving the house empty during that time. My job was to take care of the household and look after her sister, who was 4 years younger than her. "Could you please help?" "Of course, I'll pay you whatever it takes, and you can use the house as you like," Natalie asked. Without much hesitation, I agreed. Looking back, I'm not sure if it was the money or the house that drew me in, but I was just happy to be relied upon by Natalie. We walked through a garden overgrown with weeds, and Natalie finally opened the front door. The house was impressive, though not the mansion I had imagined. However, the inside of the house wasn't clean, and there were items that hadn't been moved since her parents had passed away. I had a sense of why I was called here, but probably the main reason was, "This is my sister Ruby. Hey Ruby, this is the person I told you about. Say hello," Natalie said. Surprised by Natalie's gentle voice for the first time, my gaze followed to a familiar bed, the care bed that I had bought when my mother could no longer move on her own. On it lay a young woman who looked too young for such a bed, glaring weakly at me. "Hi, I'm Ethan. I'm here to help with anything," I said. Overwhelmed by Ruby's wariness, I quickly added, "Of course, I'll be heading back home." "Oh, you can stay here if you like," said Natalie, although I frantically shook my head. Eventually, without hearing Ruby's voice, I left the room, and Natalie showed me around the house. My duties were mainly cleaning, sorting through belongings, gardening, and preparing Ruby's meals. She had been receiving meal deliveries but was apparently tired of the taste. Even as I listened to the explanation, I kept thinking about her. Given my mother's situation and my experience in caregiving, Ruby's situation felt entirely different. Ruby was involved in an accident when she was young. I was nearby at the time, but only she was affected. She probably hates me. That's why I always thought someone else should take care of her, Natalie confided. The more I heard, the more anxious I became, but moved by Natalie's voice, I felt a firm sense of responsibility. Well, she can do most basic things on her own with a wheelchair, but she can be quite demanding. Just call me if anything comes up, and please never enter my room on the second floor, Natalie instructed, handing me the spare keys as she saw me out. I'm coming to this house starting tomorrow, I thought. I still couldn't quite grasp the reality, but having accepted the job, I knew I couldn't go into it half-heartedly. The next day, I quickly finished cleaning the garden and approached Ruby, who was sitting on her bed reading a book. "Is there anything I should do?" I asked. "No," she replied coldly without looking up. It was the first time I heard her voice. She seemed able to manage basic living on her own and could even make her own coffee while reading. Since there was still a week left on her meal delivery service contract, there was no need for me to cook. She had completely shut herself off, and forcibly opening up wouldn't make any sense. Resigned to that, I spent my time cleaning the house. Although not asked, I had been sending brief update emails to Natalie, who was in another state. Her replies were just okay, the same as when she was busy at work. That continued as I hardly saw Ruby's face, just cleaning the house day after day. One day, while I was tidying the kitchen and watching Ruby's back as she read in bed, she unexpectedly muttered, "Oh, she probably ran out of coffee." Maybe out of habit, I quickly approached and asked, "Shall I make some coffee for you?" Without taking her eyes off her book, she muttered, "Just make it." At that moment, I was struck by her dismissive tone and her profile. It was natural since they were sisters, but she resembled Natalie so much, just like how Natalie would hand over a mug without looking away from her computer and say, "Just make it." I prepared the instant coffee available in the kitchen and placed it beside Ruby, saying, "Here you go." Without looking away from her book, she took a sip and glanced at me for the first time. Looking into her eyes and seeing her skin up close, she seemed much younger than Natalie and even more radiant under the daylight. It was just a few seconds of eye contact, and without saying anything, she returned to her reading. From that day on, she began to ask me to make her coffee. Furthermore, the interactions weren't limited to just brief ones to refill her coffee. With the end of the meal delivery service contract, I started cooking for her. At first, everything was a guessing game, and it was difficult to discern her preferences since she never showed her emotions. However, after about 2 weeks, I started finding notes like roast chicken, or meatloaf, or pasta or stew, with no broccoli secretly left on the table. They were probably written by Ruby during cleaning. I realized she did have her whims, as Natalie had mentioned, but I also started to feel a sense of affection. When I messaged that to Natalie, she replied with an unusual exclamation. "Okay." I fist pumped alone, feeling victorious. Just as I began to think Ruby was opening up to me, she asked me for something quite difficult. "Take me to Natalie's room," she said, looking directly into my eyes from her bed. I couldn't break my promise to Natalie to never enter that room, and Ruby's earlier words, "I think she hates me," weighed on my mind. Given how different their personalities and situations were, it was impossible to predict what they thought of each other. Natalie's room was upstairs, and Ruby couldn't get there on her own. Even if it was her sister's request, I couldn't break my promise to Natalie. "I can't take you to the room." I dodged the issue, but from then on, Ruby would pout daily saying, "I want to go to the room." When I refused, she would glare at me and mutter, "Coward." But I stood firm. One evening, when I returned from shopping and opened the front door, the first thing I saw was Ruby crouching at the bottom of the stairs. "Are you okay?" I dropped the groceries and rushed over. She seemed unhurt, but her cheeks were flushed. Clearly, she had tried to go to Natalie's room on her own. "Why do you want to go upstairs so badly?" I asked. "There's something I need to check," she said, looking away. Carrying her up the stairs step by step, she was lighter than I had imagined. "This is our little secret from Natalie, okay?" I said to her. I felt something earnest in her voice earlier, not just whimsy. "You want to see the room more than I do, don't you?" She whispered so close to my ear. We reached the door, and I apologized to Natalie in my heart as I opened it. But it was just an ordinary room, though fitting for a company CEO. Textbooks and economics books from her student days were piled high, evidence of her intelligence and hard work away from the public eye. Caught up in my thoughts, I suddenly looked at Ruby, who was staring at one spot on the desk. Following her gaze, I saw 3 framed photos. The faded photos were likely of the family, young siblings running around hand in hand, washed by their parents, and scenes from Natalie's birthdays. All of them featured the sisters smiling. Looking at the photos, I instantly understood how Natalie felt about her sister, and Ruby felt the same. Her smile as she looked at the photos warmed my heart too. "Would you like to take one down with you?" I asked. She replied, "No, I'd get scolded. Natalie has always been strict, you know. Wasn't she tough at the company as well?" "Yeah, pretty much," I replied with an innocent laugh. I didn't mention that incident in my nightly email to Natalie, but I wrote, "Ruby is a wonderful person, much like you," to which she simply responded, "I know." In the last week, Ruby started to share various things with me. She even suggested, "Let's go shopping together," and showed an interest in the outside world. Of course, Ruby's whims were still there as she kept adjusting my speed while I pushed her wheelchair. Too slow. Now too fast. After a month and a half, Natalie returned. We were a bit late heading to the airport, where Natalie was scanning the crowd with her heavy luggage. Natalie. As she turned at my call, she quickly looked down and exclaimed, "Ruby," dropping her bags and rushing over. "I'm sorry we're late. Ruby insisted on coming to meet you," I explained. "Hey, Ethan, it's not my fault, okay?" Ruby complained from her wheelchair, perhaps embarrassed to meet Natalie's gaze. Natalie, likely seeing Ruby smile for the first time in years, looked like she was about to cry. "Shall we head home?" I suggested, boldly escorting the 2 of them home. Seeing the sisters' smiles was all I could have wished for. I thought that was truly the end. The house was spotless, and Natalie was thrilled with my cooking. Who would have thought we'd be having a meal together like this? She almost cried again before taking a deep breath and then said, "Ethan, I want to thank you." As I started to protest, she cut me off. "I want you to marry Ruby. You're the only one for her. You're the only one she's opened up to this much." She blurted it all out in one go. Naturally, I was at a loss for words. Marriage? That thought was fleeting. An ephemeral hope bubbled up within me only to vanish in an instant. "What are you talking about, Natalie?" "Absolutely not." Ruby's response came without any hesitation. While Natalie was surprised, I expected her to react that way. However, her words weren't done yet. "It's you who should be getting married, Ethan. You like Natalie, right?" Those words left both Natalie and me wide-eyed, unable to stop our faces from flushing. Seeing that, Ruby laughed heartily. "Ethan, you're too obvious. You always look so happy when I talk about Natalie, and I like your coffee, but I prefer a more handsome guy." There was no escaping at that point. Cliché as it sounds, from the moment I first met Natalie, I noticed I liked her. Additionally, those past 6 weeks I've spent with Ruby have indeed drawn me closer to Natalie. I cherished the affection I felt for Ruby and wanted to share that feeling with Natalie. Above all, those days have shown me how tenderly Natalie thinks of Ruby. "Natalie, the mug you've always used at the office. That was a gift from Ruby, wasn't it?" The photos in that room I secretly entered from her childhood birthday party showed Ruby giving that mug to Natalie. "You saw them?" Natalie glanced at us sternly for a moment, then relaxed and said with a smile, "You're right. That's why I was so happy when you cleaned the mug. It's hard to put into words, but I knew then that you could be a support for us." It looks like I wasn't wrong. Her smile moved me deeply, something I had longed to see. Ruby shared her thoughts. "I always thought I was holding my brilliant sister back. That's why I was always so cold. I'm sorry, but I want you to be happier from now on." That's why I recommend this guy. She playfully nudged me, her voice trembling. Natalie, would you like to keep living together, the three of us? At my words, Natalie said, trying to act tough. Well, let's renew the contract then. Despite their different paths, the sisters, who always cared for each other, were indeed alike in some ways. Years later, I am still living in that house, now practically a stay-at-home husband with my wife, Natalie, and Ruby. Both the company's performance and my cooking skills are on the rise. Even though it's a holiday today, the sisters are just lounging around at home. More coffee, please. Ruby is still demanding but has become noticeably cheerier. She is even starting to get attention from clients at her new job, playfully boasting about potentially marrying into wealth. Honey, I want some too. Just make it however you like, called Natalie's gentle voice. I went to get matching mugs for the three of us. Hello, my name is Diana, and I'm 25 years old. The incidents I'm going to tell you about happened a couple of years ago. They involve my ex-fiancé Zach and his sister Eva. Eva and I were friends before I started dating Zach. We worked together at the same coffee shop and quickly became close. When we met, I was a senior in high school and she was in her final year of college. Despite the age gap, we bonded over our shared time off and often hung out outside of work hours. Before you think it's odd that I started dating Eva's brother, I had no idea she even had one. We rarely talked about our families and only ever mentioned our parents. I met Zach in my second year of university. By then, Eva had moved to another state for work, and I missed her terribly. We still kept in touch, calling each other every other day. Eva had been both a friend and a mentor to me, helping me through college and teaching me how to socialize, as I was quite shy and antisocial. Eva suggested that frat parties were the best way to meet people. Even though I wasn't big on parties, I decided to give it a try because I hadn't made many friends in my first 2 years of college. At the party, I felt overwhelmed by the crowd and loud music, so I sat down on a couch to catch my breath. That's when Zach sat next to me. Hey, are you okay? He asked, noticing my discomfort. Yeah, I'm fine, I replied. Did you drink too much or did you drink something uncovered? Oh no, I didn't drink anything. I'm very sober. That's a shame. Is this your first time at a party? Yeah, how could you tell? Well, you look like you'd rather be anywhere else but here. Okay, that's fair. I'd much rather be back in my room reading a book than being shoved around by sweaty, drunk strangers. Why are you here then? My friend convinced me this was the best way to make friends in college. Like an idiot, I listened to her. There are definitely better ways to make friends. Where's your friend? Shouldn't she be keeping you company? She's a few years older and in a different state right now. That's rough. Hey, do you want to maybe grab some burgers and milkshakes? I don't have a car, so that's not possible. Don't worry, I have a car. I can drive us. I don't think it's smart for you to drive if you're drunk. I'm not drunk. I'm abstaining from alcohol at the moment. I partied too hard last week, and the aftermath was not pretty. I don't believe you. All right then, there's a great little burger joint a bit away from campus. You up for a walk? Just as I was about to turn Zach down, a drunk girl fell on top of me, laughing loudly. I helped her up and then turned back to Zach, agreeing to the walk. The burger joint was a 40-minute walk from campus, but it didn't feel that long. Zach and I got to know each other better during the walk. He was in his second year as well, studying finance while I was studying marketing. We discovered we were from the same part of the city. When we arrived at the burger joint, we were ravenous and ate as if we hadn't seen food in days. We grew more comfortable with each other as time passed. On the walk back to campus, we laughed so much and leaned on each other for support, appearing as if we were drunk. Zach walking back to my dorm room and hugged me goodbye. We exchanged numbers and promised to meet again. I was on cloud 9. Not only had I made a new friend, but I had also found a guy I genuinely liked. I had dated a few guys in high school, but I had never been this excited about anyone. For the first time in my life, I was looking forward to college. It had always been something I dreaded, thinking I'd never fit in. But meeting Zach felt like the start of something new. I couldn't wait to tell Eva about my night with him. I texted her and asked if we could hop on a video call. About half an hour later, we were face to face, and one look at my expression told Eva that something big had happened. What happened? Don't hide anything. I know something good happened, she demanded. Well, I took your advice. Oh my God, did you go to the party against my better judgment? I hated it, Eva. Oh well, at least you tried. I'm sorry I suggested it. Maybe you could meet someone in the library instead. Stop it, let me finish. I was very uncomfortable at the party. I sat on the couch like the loner I was until a guy sat next to me and started talking. Oh, did he do something bad? If he touched you inappropriately, I'll fly back and beat the hell out of him. No, Eva. He was actually worried because he thought my drink got spiked. Oh wow, that was not what I was expecting out of a guy at a frat party. It's good to hear that though. Yeah, and you know what's even more shocking? He wasn't drunk. He was just a genuinely nice guy. What? That's insane. What's his name? His name is Zach. Huh, my brother has the same name. Maybe this is a sign that I'll always be near you and you can never get rid of me. Oh, shut up, Eva. Anyways, did you guys become friends? I think so. We went on a long walk to this burger joint, got burgers and milkshakes, and laughed a lot. We exchanged numbers. If that doesn't mean there's potential to be friends, I don't know what does. Look at you go. I'm so glad you had a good time. I probably should have told you not to go to a party by yourself, but at least it ended well. Even though I listened to you, I feel like I should tell you that I absolutely hated the party. I enjoyed walking for nearly 2 hours more than sitting in a room full of drunk people. Whatever. The only thing I'm taking away from this story is that I was right and you should listen to me more. I was genuinely happy, and Eva was happy for me too. It felt like things were changing, and boy did they change after that. Zach texted me the next day and asked if I wanted to meet up again after classes. Of course, I was down. For the first time since starting college, I was going out for fun, not just for assignments. Zach and I had another great time, and on our way back to campus, he asked if I'd like to meet his friends. I was nervous but figured if I managed to meet someone as amazing as Zach by luck, meeting more people wouldn't hurt. I met his friend group over the weekend, and they were surprisingly easy to get along with. They made me feel welcome without trying too hard. By the time we were heading back to our dorms, I felt like we had all grown closer in just a few hours. These people became a regular part of my life. They were from different departments, but some of us shared classes, and we all met at a particular table on the lawn during lunch hour. Suddenly, college didn't seem like a tedious task I had to complete alone. As for Zach and me, we went on many more dates. Soon we realized we had feelings for each other, but neither of us made a move. Finally, one day, Zach invited me on a fancy dinner date and asked me to be his girlfriend. I was ecstatic and said yes. We shared our first kiss on the way back home, and I felt like I was floating when I returned to my dorm room. I knew Eva would love to hear about this development. She had been rooting for Zach and me to be a couple, constantly urging me to make a move. Though I was too scared to do it myself, she would be thrilled to hear that Zach and I were together. I called her up to share the good news. "What's up?" she asked. "I have some amazing news for you." "Oh, you know I love good news. Tell me everything." Well, Zach asked me out on a proper date yesterday, I shared with Eva. "A proper date? Haven't all your solo hangouts actually been dates?" she asked. "No, I mean we went to this fancy restaurant for dinner. I got dressed up for it." "No way. It's crazy that I didn't get to see you all dolled up." "Wow, you really are growing up. Stop acting like you're my mom. What do you even mean by that?" "I practically raised you at this point," she said with a laugh. "All right, drama queen." Anyways, as I was saying, Zach and I had a good time, and after dinner, he asked me to be his girlfriend. "What? That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. How are you feeling?" "Like I'm levitating. I still can't believe this is real." "Well, it is real, and you better enjoy it as much as you can." "Oh, I definitely will." For the next 3 years, Zach and I grew more comfortable with each other. Our relationship felt like something straight out of a movie. There wasn't a single day that I was sad when I was with him. The only small issue we had was that Zach still wanted to live with his parents while I wanted us to live together. His main argument was that he was saving money so we could splurge when we got married, so I let it go. I hadn't officially introduced Eva and Zach to each other yet. Zach wasn't a big fan of phone calls, so they had only talked a few times. Then Eva told me she was coming back. I was ecstatic to have my best friend back after 4 years. She had found a better job in our town and thought it would be great to be closer to family and me. When Eva returned, she came over to my place for a sleepover. We geeked out about her being back and caught up on everything that had happened in our lives since she left. We made plans for Eva and Zach to meet that weekend. I was sure they'd like each other. When the weekend came, I walked into the cafe first and greeted Eva. "Hey, Eva." "Hello, how are you?" "All good. What about you?" "I'm good, but I could be better." "Where's your man?" "Zach's parking the car. He'll be here in a second." "Oh, there he is." As Zach walked in, Eva's face changed. "Hold on, that's Zach." "Yes." "Why, Eva? What are you doing here?" Zach said, equally surprised. "I could ask you the same thing." "Hello, could one of you explain what's going on here?" I asked, confused. "Diana, out of all the people in this world, I can't believe you're dating him," Eva exclaimed. "Yeah, well, I can't believe you managed to befriend Eva out of everyone on Earth," Zach responded. "One of you will either explain or I'm leaving," I said, frustrated. "Remember how I told you your boyfriend had the same name as my brother? Well, you are dating my brother." "What? But you don't even have the same last names." "He's my half-brother, but still. You managed to do something crazy," Eva said, shaking her head. Eva explained that her mom had died when she was young. Her dad remarried Zach's mother, and then they had Zach. I couldn't believe how everything had lined up so perfectly. Never in a million years would I have thought that I was actually dating Eva's brother. At least he was someone she could vouch for. About a year after Eva returned, Zach proposed to me. I obviously said yes, and we began planning our wedding. I told Eva about our engagement, but she seemed upset. When I asked her if something was wrong, she quickly changed the topic. Concerned, I talked to Zach about it, and he agreed that her behavior was odd. He tried talking to her, but she became hostile and told him to leave her alone. This went on for months, and eventually Eva and I were barely speaking. It felt like I had lost a really good friend, and I hated it. I had been busy with the wedding and work, and I hadn't had time to sit down and talk to her properly. One day, I decided I couldn't stand it any longer and invited her over to my place. "Eva, can you please talk to me? What's going on? Why are you suddenly ignoring me?" I really don't want to do this to you." "What? What are you talking about? Just tell me if I did something wrong. Did I upset you in any way?" "No, you did nothing wrong. I'm just dealing with something big, and I don't know how to talk about it. Am I not your friend? You can talk to me about anything." "I really wish I could tell you this, but it's very different. It'll break you, Diana." "I don't care. I just want my best friend back. Zach is also very worried about you." "Oh yeah, I'm sure he's got other things to worry about." "What are you talking about?" "Never mind. Please don't leave me hanging like this, Eva. It's killing me. I feel like I'm losing you." "I promise you're not going to lose me. I just need to find a way to explain things to you and get even with who I'm angry at." "Could I at least get a hint about who you're angry at?" "No, that will only make things worse for you. Just trust me to handle things the right way." "I'm terrified, but I trust you, Eva." Eva barely spoke to me after that. She didn't participate in any wedding planning and even refused to be my maid of honor. I was heartbroken. I trusted that Eva wouldn't leave me hanging. The months passed, and soon it was the day of Zach and my wedding. Just as it was almost time for me to walk down the aisle, Eva texted me, asking me to meet her in the alley behind the hall. Confused and concerned, I asked why she couldn't come to my room. She insisted it was important that no one saw her. Whatever she wanted to tell me sounded urgent. I informed one of my bridesmaids that I'd be a few minutes late and went to find Eva. I found Eva pacing back and forth in the alley. She quickly walked up to me, grabbed my hand, and placed a USB in it. Before I could ask her what it was for, she told me I needed to play the video on the USB and expose her brother. I was baffled and scared, but I trusted Eva. I instructed one of the staff to give the USB to the person in charge of the presentations on the projector, with instructions to play it as soon as I walked down the aisle. 2 minutes later, my heart racing, I walked down the aisle. Zach looked at me with awe, tears running down his face. Despite my fears, I hoped he had done nothing wrong. As I reached the altar, the video started playing. The crowd gasped. When I turned around, my stomach dropped. The video showed Zach and my bridesmaid, Celeste, making out and touching each other all over in his portion of the venue just hours before the wedding. I dropped my bouquet and ran out of the hall. Zach followed me. "Diana, wait." What the hell? Zach, I promise it's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. Your hands were all over her, and your faces were practically melded together. It was a moment of weakness. A moment of weakness right before our wedding. Really, Zach? At least come up with better excuses. Okay, fine. Celeste and I started messing around 2 years ago. Great. So while you were professing your love for me, you were sleeping with your best friend. We drank a little too much, and one thing led to another. You're disgusting. Why would you keep me in the dark for so long? What did you expect me to say? You'd have left me instantly and told Eva, who would then tell my family. You know, my family is very tolerant of everything except cheating. You know what? You just ruined my life. Why are you getting mad at me when you're facing the consequences of your own actions? You could have come to me privately instead of humiliating me like this. Cry me a river. You deserve this. I'm glad I found out before marrying you. If I hadn't found out, you would have kept it up, wouldn't you? Yeah, that's what I thought. You're not even sorry for cheating on me. You're only sorry you got caught. You know what? Screw you. I hope you and Celeste are happy now that I'm out of the picture. I walked away and texted Eva to meet me at my place. She arrived a few minutes later, trying to hug me, but I only wanted her to explain things. She told me that after coming back, she stayed with her parents for a while. One night, she heard 2 pairs of feet shuffling into Zach's room and thought it was me. She got up to talk and tease us for sneaking around, but she walked in on Zach and Celeste. In shock, she didn't grab evidence and just went back to her room. She couldn't look at me without feeling guilty. She tried for months to find evidence, knowing I wouldn't believe her without it. When she finally did, she wanted me to take revenge in the best way possible. I hugged her tightly, grateful she had my back. She apologized repeatedly for keeping it from me, but I understood her reasoning. She stayed with me, consoling me through the shock of my relationship ending. A few months have passed since then. Healing has been a long process. Zach's tried to contact me, but I blocked him everywhere. Eva told me no one in their family was speaking to him, and their parents had kicked him out. Celeste had also dumped him for someone else. It's satisfying to see Zach's life fall apart while mine is getting better, thanks to the one person who always had my back. Cheers to that. Hello, my name's Mabel, and I'm 30 years old. Recently, I came into a large fortune, and it revealed the ugly side of my husband. Today, I want to share my story and how I unintentionally exacted revenge on 2 people at once. To start, let me introduce myself a bit more. Though I grew up away from my grandparents, we were very close. They visited us every few months just to spend time with me. I was especially close to my grandmother, the apple of her eye, and she never ceased to spoil me. When my grandfather passed away when I was 17, I was devastated. My grandmother didn't take it well either. To be closer to her, I chose a college in her state. It was there that I met my ex-husband, Toby. Toby and I started dating in our junior year and had a pretty good relationship. He was everything I was looking for in a partner, so we continued our relationship after graduation. We got engaged a few months later but decided to wait until we were financially stable to get married. In the meantime, since I had a better apartment, Toby moved in with me. While my relationship with Toby was great, his sister Julia and I couldn't get along. She lived in another state with her husband but doted on Toby obsessively. She hated me from the moment we met, probably thinking I was stealing her baby brother. She was always rude and unaccommodating. The only reason I tolerated her visits was her daughter Viola. Viola and I got along very well, and Julia appreciated the break when I looked after her daughter. Despite Julia's behavior, Toby never stood up for me, too afraid to hurt his sister. Not wanting to cause a rift, I kept quiet and dealt with it. 3 years after our engagement, Toby and I were financially stable enough to get married. It was an amazing day, and everything seemed perfect until 4 years into our marriage. 2 major events occurred. First, my grandmother passed away, leaving me heartbroken. I inherited about $1 million in money and assets, but her loss overshadowed any material gain. Second, Julia and her family moved back to town. Suddenly, Toby was rarely home, always at Julia's place, and when he was home, Julia was often around. The only solace I found was spending time with Viola. Grieving my grandmother's death, I felt abandoned by Toby. One day, Toby came home alone after work, a rare occurrence. "Hey, sweetie, how was your day?" I asked. It was pretty good. What about you? Oh, same old. I went to meet Julia, and we got to talking. You seem to be visiting Julia a lot. You know, we're really close. I miss her and I guess I just feel better when I'm around her. Anyways, do you want to know what we talked about? Yeah, sure. Tell me. Well, I told her we were planning on buying a house. I'm going to cut you off right there. I never agreed to that. Just listen to me. Julia asked how I had the funds for it, and I told her about your inheritance. She suggested it would be a great investment. And why is that? You have more than enough money to almost fully purchase a house. I think we should invest in it to be well settled for the rest of our lives. But I want to invest my money elsewhere. What's better than securing a house for ourselves? I can think of several better uses for our future. I don't want to spend all my money on one thing. It's like you're saying your money is yours and not mine. Well, it kind of is. I get to decide what I want to do with it, and you have no say in it. Look, you either invest your money in something for both of us, or I'm leaving. Where would you go? You're begging me to buy a house with my money for your future. If you leave, that's your loss. So you're okay with me leaving because you want to keep your money. Don't twist my words, Toby. You're the one threatening to leave if I don't spend on you. I thought you loved me and wanted to spend your future with me. Forgive me for looking out for us. You're really bad at whatever you're trying to do here. I'm keeping my money and deciding how to spend it. Fine, but could you at least think about spending it on a house for us? Sure. I wasn't sure why Toby was so adamant about buying the house, but something didn't seem right. I knew I had to stand my ground. Toby began to distance himself from me. After that conversation, Toby began spending even more time at Julia's place. Julia stopped coming over except to drop Viola off for babysitting. I tried talking to Toby multiple times, asking him what was wrong, but he always brushed me off, insisting everything was fine. Eventually, I gave up, figuring I'd wait until he was ready to talk. However, things took an unexpected turn when Julia dropped Viola off one day. Hey Viola, how's my favorite niece doing? I greeted her. I'm your only niece, she replied with a giggle. Still my favorite though. I hope I'll always be your favorite. Of course you will be. So what do you want to do today? I was thinking we could get our nails done and then have some ice cream. Yay, can I paint my nails pink? Of course you can. And can I get strawberry ice cream? Why not? We'll get you everything you want. I only have one niece, and if I don't spoil her, would I really be her aunt? You know you're my favorite aunt. I really will miss you. Miss me, sweetie. What do you mean? I'm not going anywhere. Are you sure? Yes, of course. Where do you think I'll be going? Well, it's just that. What is it? You can tell me anything. I promise I won't tell anyone else. Okay, well, I heard Mommy and Uncle talking the other day. Uncle as in Uncle Toby? Yeah. Mommy said she's going to help Uncle with getting some cases. Cases? What are you talking about? They kept talking about some cases that would give them some money. Then she told Uncle Toby that he would have a nice big house after you left. You. What? Oh my God, sweetie, when did you hear about this? About 2 days ago. Are you sure you heard correctly? Yes, I'm sure. As soon as Mommy saw that I was listening, she yelled at me to go to my room. She also told me not to tell you anything, but I only told you because you're my favorite aunt. Thank you so much, sweetie. Now enough of this. Let's go out and have a fun day. I tried my best to go about the rest of the day as if I hadn't heard what Viola told me. I could tell she felt bad for telling me, but I reassured her she did nothing wrong. I spoiled her just like always. When it was time for her to go home, I made her promise not to tell her mom or Toby what she had told me. Viola promised and hugged me goodbye before Julia picked her up. As soon as they left, panic rose in my chest. I knew something was wrong with Toby, but to trick me into spending my money on him was a new low. It was something I would never have expected from him. Unsure of what to do, I called Toby's father, Edgar, who was a lawyer. Although he could have been in on Toby and Julia's plan, I had a gut feeling that he was a good man. He always treated me like a princess and put Julia in her place whenever she tried to bully me. Edgar picked up the call in his usual cheerful manner. Hello, darling. To what do I owe this phone call? Hi, Edgar. How are you? Oh, I'm doing quite well. What about you? I actually don't know. I called because I need your help. My help. What could I help you with? Isn't Toby around? He is. But he's kind of the problem. Oh no. I always told that boy to treat you right. It's hard to come by women as amazing as you. Thank you, Edgar. You may be the only one in your family who thinks I'm amazing. What are you talking about? Well, I was babysitting Viola the other day, and she told me that Toby and Julia are planning something against me. Against you? What do you mean? Viola didn't know the specifics, but apparently, they plan on taking money from me. What in God's name are you telling me? I don't know exactly what's going on. I'm worried, and I figured I'd come to you for help since you're a lawyer. You did the right thing coming to me. Now tell me, do you believe Viola? I do, because in the past few months, Toby has been distancing himself from me. I tried talking to him about it, but he never took me seriously. All right, and why do you think Julia is involved? Ever since she moved back, Toby has been spending a lot of time with her. It made sense at first since they were apart for years, but now he's at her house for hours every single day. That's strange. Did something happen a few months ago that might have triggered Toby's behavior? Yes. I received my grandmother's inheritance when she passed away. It was a substantial amount. Toby wanted to use it to buy a house, but I was hesitant. Since then, he's been acting weird. My guess is that they're planning to get your money. First of all, I'm so sorry my children are doing this to you. This is not how I raised them. Secondly, why don't you drop by my office tomorrow and we'll figure this out properly? That sounds great. And you have nothing to apologize for. You're clearly a good man. Thank you for helping me. I don't know what I would do without you. I was genuinely grateful that Edgar was willing to help. I hadn't expected him to side with me over his own children, but I was relieved he did. The next day, I took a day off work and went to Edgar's office. Once there, Edgar apologized again for Toby and Julia's behavior. I told him to focus on helping me navigate this situation. We suspected Toby was planning to ask for a divorce, so our first step was to contact all the reputable divorce lawyers in the city for advice. This would limit Toby's access to good lawyers due to conflict of interest, as they would already know my side of the story. Next, we needed to figure out how Toby and Julia planned to take my inheritance. Thankfully, I had kept my inheritance money in a separate bank account and hadn't used it to buy anything for Toby or myself. Although I had planned to buy Toby some luxury items he wanted, that clearly wasn't going to happen now. Since there was no legal way for them to access my money, Edgar and I concluded they might try to steal it outright. We decided to set up a trap to catch them in the act. I had a top-of-the-line security system installed in my apartment due to my paranoia about break-ins. Toby knew and agreed to this when he moved in. I then pretended to have trouble with my bank account, subtly letting Toby know that my bank details were logged on my laptop. Lastly, I told Toby I was going to meet a friend over the weekend, leaving him home alone. I then met Edgar, who would serve as a witness and corroborate my alibi. In the middle of our conversation, I received a notification that money had been transferred from my account to our joint account. I immediately called the police and reported the theft. When I got back from meeting Edgar, Toby was sitting in the dining room and asked me to sit with him. We need to talk. Oh? About what? About us. Okay, we're not working out. I agree. You agree? What do you mean? Well, for starters, I didn't like how you threatened to end the relationship over money, something I would have spent on us had you not done that. I didn't think that you would. And that's another point. You think so little of me, and I don't think that's a sign of a good partner. As if you've been a good partner, you've been selfish since the start, and I only put up with it because I loved you. How in the world was I selfish? I helped you pay off your student loans before mine. I supported you for a whole year when you didn't have a job. I sacrificed so much to make sure you were happy. The few times I didn't do what you wanted, I became a selfish monster to you. Don't act like what you did was some righteous thing. I would have done the same for you. Would you? You never helped me out when I was sick. Why would I think you'd sacrifice your comfort for me when I really needed it? You're just trying to make me feel bad. No, and the last reason I don't want to be with you is that I don't want to be with a lying, manipulative thief. What are you saying? Don't think I don't know about what you and Julia have been planning. I saw you transfer money out of my account into our joint account. I know you wanted to split that during the divorce. No, don't even bother. I know everything. You are a pathetic man, and I see no reason to be with you. Oh well, I'll still get half of what I transferred into our account. I still win. Will you? If I recall correctly, I had security cameras installed in my apartment, And you made that transaction from my laptop when I wasn't home. I've already reported you for theft. The police should be here anytime soon. You did what? Oh, here they come. Good luck. I'll see you in court. The relief I felt seeing Toby finally face the consequences of his actions was unparalleled. The following weeks were a nightmare of courtroom sessions and evidence viewing. Along with the theft charges, I filed for divorce. Edgar, my lawyer, fought long and hard to ensure Toby paid for his crime. Edgar won the case, and Toby was sentenced to 2 years in jail and fined an additional $30,000. Nothing was sweeter than the taste of revenge. Just as Edgar and I were celebrating our victory, Julia approached us. She had been absent during all the previous trials and chose to show up only on the day of the verdict. Her anger was evident as she pointed her finger at Edgar. Dad, you were helping this witch. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't have helped Mabel. I don't know, because she literally put your son in jail. And he deserved his sentence. It will make him think twice before trying to steal from someone again. How could you do that to your own son? No, Julia, how could you do that to your own brother? Don't think I didn't see the real reason behind your plan. You were going to help Toby get the money so you could also reap the benefits. I was trying to give him a break from this jerk here. You have no idea how toxic she is for him. I don't think she was the toxic one, Julia. You were a bad influence on him, and he was stupid enough to fall for your little game. He's getting the punishment he deserves, and maybe now he'll think twice before ever listening to you. You know you're going to lose him this way. He will never talk to you again. Good, because I have no children as far as I'm concerned. Don't be so dramatic. I'll be here. But I'm not happy with the way you treated my baby brother. As far as I'm concerned, neither you nor your brother are my children, because I know for a fact that this is not how I raise my kids. What are you talking about? What I'm saying is that I'm disowning both of you. I want nothing to do with either of you. You can't do that. I actually can, and I'm going to do just that. This is all Mabel's fault. If she had thought of someone other than herself for a second, this wouldn't be happening. No, you shouldn't have been so greedy. I was going to spoil Toby with all the things he wanted, but you had to interfere. You took away everything from him, and I hope you sit and think long and hard about what you did to your brother. Goodbye. I grabbed Edgar's hand, and we left. We couldn't help but chuckle at what had happened. I was happy Toby got what he deserved and that I was free of his manipulative ways. I did feel bad that Edgar had lost both his children because of me, but he assured me it was their own decisions that led to this outcome. I took him out for coffee, and we've maintained a good friendship ever since. Julia harassed me over text, but Edgar told her and her husband to leave me alone. This is where I unintentionally got revenge on Julia as well. Julia's husband had no idea about her involvement in what happened between Toby and me, so he called Edgar and was shocked to learn the truth. Their marriage had been on the rocks due to Julia's constant nagging about money while she refused to work. He did not appreciate her extreme actions and asked for a divorce. He also requested and received almost full custody of Viola, with Julia only getting her every other weekend. Thanks to a solid prenup, Julia got little alimony and was kicked out of their house. She blamed it all on me, but I was a little happy to see her get what she deserved. Despite everything, I still got to see Viola often, as she loved me, and Julia's ex-husband couldn't say no to her. He was very apologetic, but I reminded him he had nothing to apologize for. And yes, I am spoiling Viola senseless. As for me, my life has only gotten better. I got a promotion at work and hired an accountant to manage my finances. I've invested my money in several places, and it's only a matter of time before I see returns. Getting to where I am today took a lot of struggle, but the view from here is one I'm loving. I have a better understanding of people now, and I'll be much more cautious in the future. Thank you for your time. Hello, I am Nancy, and I am 29 years old. My life has been a rocky road most of the time, but I would go through all those years of hardship again to become who I am today. To move forward with this story, I need to start from the very beginning. I was born and raised in the small town of Fairfield, Iowa. Growing up, it was just me and my mom. My dad struggled with alcoholism. From what my mom told me, he lacked stability as an adult. I don't remember much about him because he left when I was only 3. Since then, he has never been part of the picture. After my dad left, my mom's life took a turn for the worse, and she struggled to cope. A Occasionally, we received financial help from my grandparents, which was a great relief. To support our family, my mom took on several shifts at a diner owned by Richard and Eleanor Evans. I attended school with their son, Ethan, who would later become my ex-husband. Initially, Ethan and I did not get along, but as we grew older, we developed a special connection and became close friends. We started dating when I was 16. Eleanor never seemed to approve of our relationship and began to distance herself from my mother. The Evans family was not very wealthy either. Although the diner was decent, it didn't perform exceptionally well. Ethan often confided in me about his parents' late-night arguments concerning the struggles of their business. Everything went downhill in the summer of 2016. During that time, I was working in a bookstore, determined to save up for college. I knew that coming from a small town did not limit my dreams. In fact, I had always wanted to make it big in life. Unfortunately, my mom had an accident. After fighting for her life in the hospital for a month, she finally passed away. I was devastated. She was the only blood family I had ever known apart from my grandparents. I felt very lost in life. Ethan became my pillar of support and pulled me out of the darkness I was in. I decided to leave my job at the bookstore and take up my mom's spot at the diner, as they offered better pay. Sadly, I had to give up on my college dreams and fend for myself since I was now on my own. Around 8 months after my mom's passing, while we were closing up the diner together, Ethan surprised me with a proposal. With all my heart, I said yes. The wedding was a small and intimate event with only a few close people. After the wedding, I moved in with him and his parents. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Eleanor had always been focused on wealth and status. I remember my mom telling me how Eleanor would discuss the diner business flourishing and then finding a girl for Ethan with an impressive background, someone from a wealthy family, a prestigious college graduate, and so on. It was surprising to learn that Ethan's parents, especially Eleanor, were supportive of our marriage. But at that time, I was preoccupied with my own grief and did not think much about it. Despite being aware of our relationship, Eleanor indirectly expressed her belief that her son deserved to be with someone of higher standing. One day, when the diner was busy, Ethan's friend Miles paid a visit. I was in the back doing inventory when I overheard snippets of Eleanor talking with Miles and his new wife, Sheila. I made my way to the front to say hi, but Eleanor rushed me away, not even introducing me properly. After they left, Eleanor and I got into an interesting conversation. "Well, that was Miles," I said. "Yeah, I've heard about him. He recently tied the knot, huh?" Eleanor replied. "Oh, indeed. He married Sheila. She's an absolute gem, you know. Fantastic upbringing and all. Both her parents are top-notch doctors down in Orlando. She's quite a remarkable woman herself, practicing law. Impressive, really. A catch like her is what any man dreams of. Lucky guy, that Miles. I wish my Ethan had that kind of luck, you know." "What do you mean?" "Well, you know how it is. Sometimes I just wish he would have found someone who's, well, more put together. Like Sheila. It's funny how Ethan and Miles grew up together, liking the same things, and look at their wives now. Quite a contrast, huh?" "You know, Eleanor, it's not always about what society thinks. Ethan and I have a history together, and our love runs deep. Sweetie, love is just a word sometimes. You're young, and I get that you're in love. But my love for Ethan is unconditional, and I believe that's the most precious thing in life. If you're claiming you love him so much, don't you think he deserves someone even better? I mean, when I look at you, with your mom gone and your dad disappearing, who knows when, if it weren't for Ethan, could you even take care of yourself? What do you have to offer?" I know these words sting, but they're kind of true, don't you think? Eleanor's words hit me hard, and I was hurt. I tried to move past it, thinking maybe she needed time to accept me. Her comments really got to me, and I was angry. But deep inside, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a grain of truth in what she said. I was pretty insecure back then, which probably made her words cut even deeper. As for me and Ethan, things weren't as great as they used to be. I started questioning if he regretted marrying me. There was a growing distance between us, and I initially blamed it on the challenges we faced with the diner. But there was definitely a shift in our connection. It's been over a year and a half since we got married, and during this time, Eleanor occasionally made hurtful remarks about my background. Despite those comments, I tried my best to stay calm and work on strengthening my relationship with Ethan. However, over time, I noticed a change in Eleanor's behavior. Her comments went beyond the occasional snide remark, and it became clear that something was off. She was acting unpredictably. Then one evening at the dinner table, something unexpected happened. A moment that would alter the course of my life in ways I could never have imagined. "How was your day, dear?" Eleanor asked. "It was all right. Actually, I've been wanting to announce something," Ethan said. "Mom, Dad, I've been thinking about this for quite some time. I think I'm going to invest some of my money in Nancy's education. It's always been her dream to go to college, and the diner is not doing well either." The whole dining room went dead quiet when Ethan dropped that unexpected bomb. I was stunned. He hadn't even talked to me about it beforehand. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and even Eleanor looked shaken. It was a sweet gesture, but a little heads up before dinner would have been nice. "What? Jesus Christ, Ethan," Eleanor exclaimed. "Mom, please don't overreact," Ethan pleaded. Richard, who had been silent, finally spoke up. "Let us hear Ethan out, dear." "Ethan and I have not discussed this," I interjected. "Ethan, I think it might be a good idea to chat about this one-on-one first." "No, you stop. You do not get to have a say in this," Eleanor snapped. "We took your mother in at the diner out of pity. Your alcoholic dad abandoned you. She was a single woman with an 8-year-old with no one to look out for her. You and your mother were nothing more than a sympathy project. We generously offered her a place in our diner for so long, and now you have managed to find your way into our house. My son deserved someone better than you, someone from a well-off family. He should be living a suburban life of luxury and sophistication. But instead, you are with him now, living under our roof, leeching off my son's success." "Honey, please hear me out," Ethan pleaded as I started to get up. "Do not leave." "I'm sorry, but I've had enough," I said, tears welling up in my eyes. After putting up with Eleanor's brutal and painful remarks, I just couldn't keep my composure anymore. I excused myself from the dining table and fled into the kitchen for some space. I hovered close to the kitchen door, secretly hoping to catch bits of the conversation unfolding at the table. Through the muted voices, I managed to pick up Ethan's voice rising above the rest. "Mom, can't you see what you're doing? I get it. Nancy isn't exactly your top choice for me, and maybe it started out as some sort of crush or whatever, but this has to stop. But look, she lost her mom, and I feel like she needs someone. Maybe I messed up, maybe I mixed up sympathy with love, but I just can't leave her hanging. She doesn't have anyone else in her corner. I'll admit our romantic spark has kind of fizzled, and I've grown apart from that, but Nancy's stuck in a tough spot. She's got nowhere else to turn. I've been thinking about paying for her college, and maybe after that, we can figure out the divorce route or whatever. I just can't kick her out to the curb like that. We've been in this thing since we were 16, you know." "Look how she stormed off," Eleanor interjected. "Oh my God, Ethan, I've seen this coming from the start. Nancy is nothing but trouble. You've let your emotions run wild. Pity isn't the foundation for a lasting relationship. You have grown, and it's time to think about your own future. This girl's problem should not be your burden. You cannot fix her life at the cost of ruining yours." I was completely floored by what I had just heard. Ethan had been with me out of pity. My heart shattered into a million pieces as our whole marriage felt like a sham. At that moment, I knew what I had to do. I had to give him what he seemed to want, a divorce. I made a bold choice to follow my dreams, which led me straight to Los Angeles. Against all odds, I figured I had nothing to lose. I snagged a small one-room apartment, setting up shop on a basic mattress. Relying on my waiting experience, I aimed to score a gig at a restaurant and jumpstart this new chapter in LA. After a bit of hustling, I landed a job at a restaurant. I got into a rhythm of living paycheck to paycheck, but I wasn't about to let that slow me down. In a few months, I got a sweet promotion to work directly under the restaurant manager. Life started to shift for the better. I wasn't just scraping by anymore. My hard work and skills were earning me some major recognition. I ended up diving into the world of high-end hotel management, working with places that rolled out the red carpet for A-listers. As my career grew, so did my lifestyle. I traded my simple apartment for a lavish house. After the heartbreak with Ethan, I pretty much lost all hope in love. But then Harry walked into my life. Our paths crossed at my friend Elisa's bougie birthday party bash on a yacht. I was still wrapping my head around all that fancy stuff rich people do. Harry had this magnetism about him. and he made me feel comfortable right away. He treated me with genuine respect and awe, like I wasn't some outsider but a legit part of his world. It turns out he was a big shot in the LA finance scene, with a loaded family and all that. It was seriously mind-blowing to find out that his dad, Mr. Johnson, was a billionaire. Fast forward to our wedding day. We tied the knot at a stunning vineyard in Los Angeles, and just last month we hit our first anniversary, which felt like a big deal. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about Ethan and his family during all this time. While I was out here hustling to make a name for myself, Eleanor's words had me feeling something. I kind of had this constant urge to prove to her that I could be successful on my own terms and that it was her son who let me down. Life indeed surprises us in countless ways, and it certainly did surprise me last weekend when my father-in-law hosted a soiree at their sprawling mansion in Bel Air. While I was mingling, my gaze locked onto someone across the room, and my heart went into overdrive. There, serving food, stood an elderly woman who bore a striking resemblance to Eleanor. My mind struggled to comprehend the possibility of her being here. Excusing myself from the company, I made my way to the lady, and yes, it was her. "Hey, Eleanor." "Hey, stranger. It's been long." "It has. What are you doing here?" "Doing the whole catering thing here. Can you believe it? Rubbing shoulders with all these high-profile folks." "Well, congrats on that honor." "Thanks, but honestly, you've got a part in this. We might not have come this far if we were still dealing with some holdbacks." Pretty bold statement. I've always wanted what's best for the family. Sure thing, we shut down the old diner and leaped into the catering world. Ethan came up with the idea, and surprise, surprise, it's turning out to be a pretty profitable deal. Now we're crisscrossing the state catering to all sorts of events and fancy clients. We were in Glendale a few nights ago when Mr. Johnson asked us to cater for his party. "You know, I never wish any ill will towards you, so I genuinely hope you're doing well. How's Ethan?" "Better than he used to be. Oh, and here's the kicker. Ethan has even moved on with his love life and snagged himself a new girlfriend. Usually he accompanies me on these trips, but this time he's off to Hawaii with her. She's a real delight to have around, or just like a living doll. She just seems perfect for my kid." "But for him, Eleanor. By the way, what are you doing here?" "Who called you here?" "I'm sorry, but you are too poor to be here. You haven't changed at all, have you?" "Forget about me. Look at you, still trying to get your way around the rich. Old habits die hard, sweetheart. You will always be that girl from Fairfield, the one with nothing to offer. I'm here because I belong here, just like anyone else. No one called me. I came here with Harry, my husband, and also Mr. Johnson's son." Eleanor's face displayed a look of shock, but she played it cool and mean, as always. "Don't think he will stick around forever. People like you never stay for long. Eventually, he will see that he deserves someone better, someone from his world. Harriet is just naive. You have no idea how far I have come. I have a name in the hotel industry now, and never mind. You know that your wealth does not define you just as my past does not define me. I've worked hard to build a life for myself, and I'm proud of where I stand today." "Well, aren't you full of yourself? You may have managed to climb the ladder, but you will never truly fit in with people like us. You will always be an outsider." You know, I used to think that way too, but I have learned that truly belonging does not come from material possessions or social status. You've certainly grown bold, haven't you? Well, we will see how long that lasts. I have seen it all before. It's good that Ethan got rid of you. If you want to delude yourself, go ahead, but do not expect me to change my mind about you. I was all set to deal with Eleanor and show her I meant business, but suddenly, the sound of a spoon hitting a glass stole the spotlight. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention, please. Tonight, I stand before you with a lot of pride and joy in my heart. It is a momentous occasion as I pass on the torch of responsibility to the next generation. My son, Harry." I gave Harry a quick look, and our eyes connected for a second. I smiled at him, and "I'm proud of you" smile. His dad just handed him a whole business, making it his day to remember. It was his special day, and I was seriously determined not to let anyone from my past mess with the great thing I had going on at the moment. "Nancy, my dear daughter-in-law, you have shown us the true meaning of strength and resilience. From the very moment I met Nancy, I was captivated by her tenacity, dedication, and unwavering commitment to her dreams. Her journey from a small town to the chaotic city of Los Angeles has impressed me. She is a remarkable young woman who has not only touched my son's heart, but also brought a lot of joy into our lives. Tonight, we celebrate not just the passing of the torch to my son Harry, but also the recognition of Nancy's extraordinary talent and potential. It is with absolute delight that I announce that Nancy will be taking charge alongside Harry as a key leader in our business. It was totally my I made it moment to have Mr. Johnson, the big shot behind this business, acknowledge me and hand over this huge responsibility. I can't even put into words how much that means. With everyone clapping and cheering, Harry made his way to me, leaned in, and gave me a sweet little peck on the cheek. You deserve this as much as I do. I love you, baby. Cheers to us. I love you too. In the middle of all the hype, I hadn't forgotten the conversation I was having with Eleanor earlier. Now, with this huge announcement, I was itching to see her reaction and maybe just drop it on her. I scanned around and there was Eleanor right inside. Hey, I just phoned by to soak up this moment. You know, the one where I get to show you how off the mark you were about me. Oh, the golden days of your doubt. Remember when you thought I'd crash and burn in this world? I had valid concerns, okay? I mean, how could he? No. You got it all wrong. Well, those words just got upgraded to my achievements. Co-running this business with Harry, living the life I've always wanted. I did level up for your approval, but I can't deny that it's pretty satisfying watching you squirm. At that moment, a hint of satisfaction crept over me because it seemed like karma was doing its thing perfectly. With a little smug smile, I looked into her eyes, gaining a boost of confidence. Revenge might not be the noblest thing, but seeing Eleanor's jealousy written all over her face was a pretty satisfying win. It's been about a week since the big bash. I'm pretty sure Ethan's back from his vacation by now. Eleanor must have filled him in on the whole deal too. The feeling of proving myself to those who once doubted me is indescribable. It's a reminder that you never know what someone's really made of, and that even the biggest skeptics can be proven wrong. With Harry right there beside me, we are juggling not just one but two businesses. For the Evans, a lesson learned, and for me, well, let's just say I'm living life to the fullest, rich in every sense of the word.